thank you all so much for coming out. We only have 8 days until the election, so this is a huge, huge time for us. Thank you so much. It's great to see so many people in the room. So I'm going to kick it off really quickly. I'm going to introduce you to Margot Davidson, who is our state representative in the 164th district.
All right, Margot!
I am just more than ecstatic to see so many of you here because this election could not be more important. As we see the occurrences of hate all around this country and even as close as Pittsburgh this past weekend, we know that the stakes could not be higher. And how we are going to counteract that hate is by love. And that demonstration of love is going to be our vote on November 6th. Literally everything that we care about is at stake. Whether you care about criminal justice reform, whether you care about human rights or the environment or education or any of the things that you can think of in your mind right now that's under assault by this administration, by the Senate Republicans, by the House Republicans in the United States Congress, and as well as the House Republicans in the state and the House Senators, the Republicans in the state of Pennsylvania. Whether you're talking about fair property taxes or education reform or judicial candidates, all of those things are on the ballot on November 6th. We have 8 days to let every voter know you must come out and vote. Bring everybody you know to the poll, and let's get this done. Are you with me?
Thank you so much. Thanks so much, Margot. Really quickly, I just want to take a moment to introduce, we have some elected officials in the room. So we have Bob Gwynn here. Bob Gwynn is our councilman in the 5th District. We have Scott Alberts here. He's our treasurer for Upper Darby Township. And now I'm going to introduce you to a candidate for state representative, Mike Zabel. He's running in the 163rd.
Thank you, Brianna. I specifically requested, can I please follow Margot? All right. Please, because we have similar styles. We complement each other. So Margot hit on a lot of why this is so darn important. But with the senator here, too, there's one thing I want to talk to you about, something that, as I've gone around and talked to people and knocked on doors, I know it's a cause that's near and dear to the senator's heart, is health care, and in particular protection for pre-existing conditions. If you've been following the news, you saw the Trump administration just issued some guidance that essentially has given state legislatures free license to ignore protections for pre-existing conditions. So, why it is so important, in part, what you are doing tonight is not just to make sure that Senator Casey is back in office to fight against the attempts to repeal the ACA, but it's also because they are going to try to kick this issue to the state legislatures, and they are going to try to take that Republican-dominated state legislature and let them strip away and issue junk insurance plans that will make plans that cover pre-existing conditions inaccessibly expensive. The stakes couldn't be higher. So when you make those calls today, this is about being able to afford care for when you are sick, when your loved ones are hurt. There's nothing more basic than that. This is it. This affects everybody. This is not a Republican or a Democrat issue, or it shouldn't be. But it's important that everybody hears that, because there is one party that is going to fight for those protections, and that is us. So you are doing important work. You are doing God's work today. Thank you. Make those calls and express that urgency, because in the 164th and in my district, the 163rd, if the Democrats turn out, we're going to win. Get them out the door. Thank you.
All right, we have one more elected official, actually, Dr. Monica Taylor. She's at the Upper Darby School District. Thanks so much. All right, so I'm also going to introduce now Dave Deloso, who's running for state representative in the 162nd District.
Thank you. Can I listen? I'm new to the world politics, right? Everybody knows I'm a labor leader, but I want to point at something. See this here? All right. I learned about that some time ago. All right, I always knew what the rainbow was. I always knew what the spectrum was, but I didn't know what this is. And a buddy of mine I shot pool with for years put it on his pool bag, and I said to him, I said, what is that? I said, I know you. I said, you're not gay. So what stands for equality? All right, so how appropriate is this? All right, what that stands for to me, since he's shown that to me, I see it on every car. And I've started to understand more and more and more about equality. And what I beg to go to Harrisburg to do is to bring equality in the workplace, equal pay, equal access to health care, equal rights, equal access to the ballot box. These are the things that I care about. See, where I'm from down in the 162nd, my universe down there runs the entire gamut from poor to nearly poor to working poor to lower middle class to firmly in the middle class. And I tell all my constituents, my hopefully my future constituents, that I feel like I've had the best of everything in my life, right? Because I've always had an equal shot, and I'm not convinced that everybody in the 162nd has had the same shot that I've had. So you know, I really didn't understand, and it may mean more than just the E, but that's what my buddy Brendan told me. He said it stood for equality. And I thought, you know what? It's already taken. I can't use it for a campaign slogan. But it's really what I'm striving to do as a representative in the 162nd is equal pay, whether you're a man or you're a woman. Equal opportunity to the workplace, regardless of your ethnicity, regardless of your religion, regardless of your lifestyle. Equality. Equal access to health care. I have a son that's a type 1 diabetic. I had a heart attack 11 years ago. I am a walking pre-existing condition. Right? My son is a walking pre-existing condition. Right? Equal access. All we want is a fair shot. And that's when I get to Harrisburg, and if Democrats come out and vote, and if what you good people are doing tonight, something that I hadn't seen before I was a candidate. As a labor leader, I've done lit drops. As a labor leader, I've done phone banks. I've done all those little things. Candidate calls me up, hey, Dave, can you grab 4 guys and do a lit drop? Well, I mean, I do my thing once or twice, you know, for this guy or that girl that's running for office. I had no idea how dedicated the volunteers really are. I thought I was doing something. I was doing very little. And I'm so excited to see everybody here. And there's, 8 days left? And it's the big push. And if you want the big E in Harrisburg, you got to keep pushing and deliver us all. I don't have a big punchline to get me to the end here.
Thank you so much. I'm also really pleased to introduce you now to a candidate running for Congress in the 5th District, Mary Gay Scanlon.
All right.
Thank you so much. I am running for the new 5th District. I'm also running for the old 7th District. So if you see me more than once on the ballot, please vote more than once. Okay. Okay. So I had the pleasure earlier today of going down to Chester with Mayor Kirkland and celebrating the 336th anniversary of William Penn setting foot in Pennsylvania in Chester. So that was really a little history lesson, whatever, and I had to do a little research. It felt so appropriate to me after the week we had with the violence and the threats of violence against people because of their political party, because of their race, because of their religion, to be down there celebrating someone whose, core identity was about religious tolerance and about nonviolence. And it just, it was heartening, and it was really good to be there and to be thinking about the fact that these are not new ideas. So I had to do a little extra research on William Penn, and in addition to religious tolerance and nonviolence, he also promoted criminal justice reform, and he promoted public education and expanding access to the ballot and a healthy environment. So I think he was a Democrat, okay? So, it is an important election. Thank you. I mean, I'm looking around and seeing so many of the super volunteers who I've seen at event after event after event. Thank you all for your tireless work and for supporting all of us up and down the ballot. We've got such a good team, and we want to do so much good work together. So thank you all for being on our side.
All right, it is absolutely my pleasure to introduce you now to the president of the Human Rights Campaign, Chad Griffin.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Brianna. Thank you for all you do to organize folks all across this district. It is so great to be here with you in Delaware County because you know what you're doing here? You're making history. The opponents of equality, you know what they don't have? They don't have you. That's exactly right. They don't have you. They don't have this army of warriors knocking on doors and making phone calls, turning out our community, standing up for everyone who needs equality in this country. And I know we all stand in solidarity with those who are suffering and those who are recovering in that tragedy in Pittsburgh. I was in Minneapolis yesterday and attended an interfaith service. And I know it happened in cities and towns all across this country. Folks who came together and everyone said, an attack on any of us is an attack on all of us. And we all have to stand up and speak out against anti-Semitism, against racism, against homophobia, against transphobia. And these days we see these attacks across the board. Whether they're verbal attacks, they're policy attacks we see day in and day out coming from the Republican leaders in the House and in the Senate. And we need more people who will go to Washington and who will go to the State House and who will fight for all of us, who will stand up to this president and vice president and their hateful agenda. And you have some of the most incredible pro-equality champions standing before you today. It is a hall of fame, of pro-equality champions. The Human Rights Campaign is so proud to stand alongside Mary Gay Scanlon in her historic race to make certain that we have a pro-equality champion representing this district. And you know, oftentimes, in fact, almost always, elections are about choices. And if you look at your United States Senator standing here today, time and time again, he goes to Washington, D.C., and he stands up and he fights for every single one of us. He's lived the American dream, and he's fighting for all those who haven't yet realized it. His opponent? We have a scorecard that comes out every Congress. We carefully analyze every vote, every bill they co-sponsor. His opponent, for 8 years, has had a perfect 0 on our scorecard. That tells you a lot about who he is, what his values are, and what side of history he stands on. So we have got to do everything we can. I look around this room, and you all have lived through a lot of elections. And you've heard someone tell you every single election that this is the most important election of our lives. Well, guess what? This election is actually the most important election of our lives. So let's make this the election of no regrets. None of us want to wake up the day after this election wondering if we could have made one more phone call, knocked on one more door, donated one more dollar to these incredible candidates. So let's do everything we can. Between now and Election Day, it's 7 hours, 7 days, 11 hours, 5 minutes, and 10 seconds. But who's counting, right? Let's do everything we can to make sure that we have these pro-equality champions representing this state. Thank you all so much for being here. Thanks for making history. Join me in welcoming your incredible pro-equality champion, Senator Bob Casey. Thank you, my friend. Of course, thank you.
Chad, thank you. Well, I don't know what to say. What a great lineup of speakers. I just say thanks and get on the phone, right? Or I should say get back on the phone. You've already been on the phone, and I'm cognizant that you have to make calls tonight, so I don't want to keep you too long. But Chad, thank you for being here and for being, I don't know how many states you've been in. You probably don't want to count. A few. But for your leadership in this election, but I think much more broadly, your leadership of the Human Rights Campaign. And I want to thank the Human Rights Campaign in a much broader sense, beyond just one election or even a series of elections, for what the Human Rights Campaign does day after day, month after month, and now year after year after year, to help us make this a more perfect union. And we got battles to fight and a road to run through, but we know that the Human Rights Campaign has appealed to the conscience of America and has been very successful at making sure that we're all doing our part for equality. You know, we have the Equality Act, which has I don't know how many Democratic co-sponsors. We're looking for that one. I don't think we have a Republican yet, do we?
Not in the Senate yet.
Just trying to get someone to cross that big divide in the Republican Party. If we just got one Republican senator, it would be a great breakthrough. But I just am so grateful for your leadership, Chad. Chad worked in the White House. He was the youngest White House staffer, I think, ever. He was 7 years old. He was on the White House staff. No, he's a little bit older than that. He wouldn't be allowed to at that age. But he has been such a leader for so many years, and we're just grateful that he's committed so much of his life to these issues and this cause, and we're honored to have him back in Pennsylvania. And Chad, I think you can tell by this room and the work that's being done here how much commitment the people in this room have. And a lot of you folks have fought your own battles along the way. You've had to overcome obstacles. You've had to face not just discrimination in some cases, but hostile environments of one kind or another. And I was just so heartened that so many people tonight mentioned and thought about and prayed for the people in the city of Pittsburgh and those families. I was carrying around a list of those who lost their lives, and it's simple, but it's just a piece of paper. But you look at the ages on this: 54 to 97. People just coming on a Saturday morning to worship, and they're gunned down. There's a lot to talk about there, obviously, on a range of issues on gun violence. And I won't keep you tonight by going down that list, but we're just grateful that you're in solidarity with them, that you're thinking of them, praying for them and their family, and helping the city of Pittsburgh, that community, to be able to heal from this horror that I can't even begin to imagine. But I'm so grateful that you're working so hard on these calls, and some of you are making calls and going to meetings and knocking on doors and arguing with your persuadable neighbors that we have a big election. Mary Gay Scanlon, I was so heartened because I pretend that I'm like a history professor, even though I'm not qualified. But when she mentioned the William Penn anniversary, it just reminded me, I just forgot about this, that Mary Gay Scanlon's candidacy and the team she is on is a candidacy that will mark history. We will elect more women in one night to the Pennsylvania delegation to the House. It isn't more women in one night since William Penn, but it's too damn close to that, right? Yeah. It took us a while to get our act together. Finally, Mary Gay and others are showing us the way. But one thing I just thought about as you were talking, for some reason the mark of history was not placed on Hannah Penn, William Penn's wife, who became the equivalent of the governor of Pennsylvania at one point. But somehow when they put those portraits of all the governors, a bunch of much older, obviously, white men, they forgot to put her there, and Governor Wolf hung a portrait of her in his office to kind of correct the record. So we want to make sure that the record is very clear on Election Day with our whole ticket from the governor's race to my race to the U.S. House races to Senate and to State House. And I'm so grateful that you have such a strong ticket here in Delaware County in Upper Darby, that you're willing to help them make history as well, because we're going to make a lot of progress this year. I don't know what the State House will end up, but I know we'll make progress. I know we'll make progress in the State Senate. And one of the reasons we will is because I think a lot of people know that there's so much at stake. This isn't just another election where you kind of check a box and go through the motions. People understand now, because of what's happened the last 2 years. If someone doubted about the extremism of the National Republican Party, House, Senate, and now White House, if anyone doubted that, there aren't many doubters today. This is a corporate agenda they have underway. And I believe they do control all three of those, I'll call them institutions, the White House, the House, and the Senate, basically controlling two branches of government, and then obviously just a couple of weeks ago got the fifth vote on yet a third branch of government. I know in my lifetime, but I think I could go back even further, I don't think the corporate special interests have had more power in any one place at any one time. That's the bad news. The good news is you. The good news is what you're doing here. And many of you didn't just start tonight, you started months and months ago, maybe even way back in 2017. And I'm grateful for that. I happen to be the beneficiary of it. But you're doing this not for a candidate or a series of candidates. You're doing it because you love your country. And you know your country can do better. You know that we can get on a different path, a better path. So I would like to end, as Dave was referring to, some kind of union chant. Early to bed, early to rise, work like hell and organize. But I don't have to say that here. They've already done it. But let me finally just say thank you for what you're doing and what you will be doing over these next 8 days. And thank you to the leadership of the party here in Delaware County. And thank you to the Human Rights Campaign for being a bright light to guide us even in dark times. God bless you and thank you. Mark, I wouldn't want to stop you. Brianna, I didn't say Mel, say Brianna. Good job.
Oh, thanks so much. Thanks. Oh, thanks. Wow, thanks everyone. So we are very quickly going to try and get everyone up here in a group picture with the senator and a couple of signs. After the picture,